Good evening, all of you. In the last session, we discussed about package managers in the Linux. So what is a package manager? Why we need to go for package managers? Package managers are used to install or update, remove packages in the Linux. For example, if you want to install any software, if you want to update any software, then we have package managers in the Linux. So these package managers are specific to Linux distribution. For example, if we are going with Amazon Linux, then the package manager is YUM. Yum package manager we are using for that. If we are going with Ubuntu, then we are going to use apt package manager. For Amazon Linux, Yum package manager. For Ubuntu, we are using apt as a package manager. Okay, then after that, we have installed some softwares by using package managers. And we installed Java, we installed Maven, and we installed Git client softwares also by using package managers concept. Then after we understand how to install MySQL software in the Amazon Linux. Okay, MySQL database server, database client we can install by using the commands. Then we discussed about what is a web server in the Linux and how to install web server in the Linux. Basically, web server is a software which is used to run websites. We can use HTTPD as a web server in the Amazon Linux machines. Okay, so by using Yum package manager, we can install that HTTPD. Right? Once that is installed, then we can start that service. Whenever we run HTTPD server, it will run on the port number 80 port number. Okay, so if you want to access that web server, then we need to enable that port number in the security group inbound rules, right? By using the public IP, we can access that web server and we can host some static websites also by using this web server. Then we started our discussion related to what is systemctl in the Linux. Okay, so if you observe, systemctl is a command line utility in the Linux operating system. So for example, we are installing some softwares, then we need to start that service. We want to start that software as a service, then we want to stop that service, restart that service, reload the service, okay, enable or disable the service. These kind of operations, if you want to perform, then we can use systemctl in the Linux operating system. For example, here we installed HTTPD. After installing that HTTPD, we want to start that HTTPD as a service. For that, we will use sudo service HTTPD start. All right. So here, in order to start that service, some common tasks that here are some of the common tasks we can perform by using systemctl. Some common tasks we can perform using systemctl. We can start particular service, we can stop the particular service, we can restart the service, we can reload the service, we can enable or disable the services in the Linux by using this systemctl. For all of you, is my voice clear? For all of you, is my voice clear? Yeah, good. So fine. What are the commands that we can execute? What are the commands that we can execute by using this systemctl? Here are some of the examples how we can use this systemctl. Okay, so I want to start the service. Start a service. For example, HTTP. In order to start a service, we can use systemctl we can use systemctl start that service name. Whatever the service is available, we can start that by using this systemctl. So for example, I want to start HTTP. So then how can we do that? Systemctl start HTTP. So HTTPD is a web server. We are installing that web server in the Linux machine. Then we want to start that. For that, we can use systemctl start HTTP. So similarly, I want to stop the service. Similarly, I want to stop the service. In order to stop the service, we can use systemctl stop service name. We can start the service and we can stop the service. Suppose if I want to restart the service, whatever the service is available, that service we want to restart. For that, we can use systemctl restart service name. Systemctl restart the service name. Okay, start the service, stop the service, and restart the service. Then next one, reload the service. How can we reload the service? For that, we can use systemctl reload service name. Okay, I want to enable a service or I want to disable a service. So enable service. Same thing, systemctl enable service. Systemctl enable service. Next one, I want to disable a service. So for that, we can use systemctl disable service. Enable the service and disable the service. For example, I want to know the status of the service. I want to know the status of a service. For example, what is the status of HTTPD? Is it running or is it active or is it inactive? Check the status. Check the status of a service. To check the status of a service, we can use systemctl status of that particular service name. Whatever the service that you want to check, that service name you can give as an input for status command. You can enable the service, you can disable the service, you can start the service, you can stop the service, restart it, reload it, enable it, disable it, and check the status of the service. So these are the common things that we can perform by using systemctl command in the Linux operating system. So systemctl basically used to manage the services in the Linux. So what are the packages that you are installing? What are the packages that are installed? Those packages can be managed. They can be started, they can be stopped, they can be enabled, they can be disabled by using this systemctl. Okay, so let me go to our Linux machine that we have created. Let me connect with this Linux machine, SSH client. So let me go to the key pair and let me connect with our Linux machine and let me perform these operations. Okay, we do have a key pair. Then go to git bash. Yeah, I'm connecting to this machine. It is asking, are you sure? Do you want to connect? Yes, boss, I want to connect for this one. Yes, we have connected. Good. Now, so let me check sudo systemctl status HTTPD. Okay, now you can see it is loaded, status inactive. The status of the HTTPD is inactive. Now I want to start it. HTTPD is a package. There is a software that we install. We are using that as a web server to run our website. Now I want to start it. Sudo systemctl start HTTPD. Now, after starting this HTTPD, verify the status. Now it is showing as active. So earlier, when I tested first time, that status of the HTTPD is inactive, almost a dead state. Now, after that, I have executed a command systemctl start HTTPD. HTTPD server is started and it is in the active state. We can say it is in the running state. So if you want to restart that service also, that can be done by using systemctl. Systemctl restart. Okay. Now, if you want to restart the server, then you can do like this. If you want to disable it, you can disable it, you can enable it. So these kind of operations can be done by using systemctl command in the Linux machine. Are you guys clear what is a web server and what is systemctl in the Linux? What is a web server? What is a web server and what is systemctl? Are you guys clear with that point? Are you guys clear with that point? Yeah, perfect. So guys, we completed what is package manager and how to deal with web servers and what is systemctl in the Linux machine. The next one, how to change host name. Currently when I connect, here it is displaying IP address. This IP address means when I connect with multiple machines, then I may not understand currently I am connected with which machine. I want to change the host name here. So in order to change the host name, I can use sudo hostname my Linux VM. Something like this, I'm checking. Now exit, press R. I want to reconnect to this machine, then verify what is happening. Now you see, earlier it was showing IP address. Earlier it was showing IP address. Now I changed that IP address to my Linux VM. So like this, you can do the host name setup in the Linux machine. So how to change the host name in the Linux machine? How to change the host name in the Linux machine? By default, it is going to display IP address here. By default, it is going to display IP address. So if you connect with the 3-4 machines at a time to perform the operations, one machine is a Docker machine, one machine is a Jenkins machine, one machine is a Kubernetes machine. Okay, when you connect with multiple machines by using SSH client, it may be confusing. You are executing the commands in the which machine. So to avoid that problem, what we can do, we can set the host name to that Linux machine. Instead of displaying the IP address, I want to display some name to that machine. For example, Jenkins server, Docker server, Sonar server. Like that, I want to display the name for the machine. This name that we are displaying is called as host name. How to set a host name, how to change the host name in the Linux VM. So to change the host name, in the Linux VM, we are using sudo hostname, where we are giving the new name. Whatever the name we have given, that name is going to display here. So this will improve readability. When you are performing operations with multiple machines, so easily you can understand. So this is a Linux machine, right? This is a Docker machine. This is Docker machine. This is Kubernetes machine, something like that. You can easily understand that. Are you clear with my point? Yeah. So here I have done this by using sudo hostname command. Now I'm closing this one. I'm closing this git bash. I want to connect it again. Okay. So if I close it and if I connect to this machine again, what will happen? So let me check it. Go to git bash. And let me connect back to this machine. Yes, now you can see my Linux VM is coming. Suppose if I want to give you a different name, sudo hostname Docker server. I'm giving the host name as Docker server. Then exit, then connect back. Now the name is coming as Docker server. So this is my Docker server. So next time, if I connected with multiple machines, easily it will be giving the name for me. This is a Docker server. So are you able to understand how to change host name in the Linux? Are you clear? R is just for reconnection, guys. So here you no need to do that. Exit from the session and connect with machine again. Using SSH command. Sudo hostname, the new name we are giving, then exit from the session, then connect with the machine again using SSH command. Then it will display the latest host name that we have given. Are you clear? Are you clear with my point? All good. So guys, so far we discussed about several Linux commands. So these are the Linux commands we learned so far, and we discussed about systemctl command, and we discussed about package manager. Okay, 43 we discussed about yum, and we discussed about systemctl. Okay, perfect. Now I'm giving one assignment for you guys, one interview question. How to copy files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine. I want you people to try this. I have the file in one Linux machine. How do you copy the files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine? So I'm giving 1 minute of time. Can anyone do some research and let me know? How can we achieve this task? Copy the files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine. Can you guys try this? How to copy the files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine? Come on. Can you guys try this? How to copy the files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine? Please do the research. Some people are doing that research. Some people are not doing that research. using SCP command, by using WinSCP, okay, using SCP command. Yeah, you guys can try this and let me know. You guys can try this and let me know how to copy the files from one Linux machine to another Linux machine. All right. Yeah. People asked, sir, is the class happened yesterday? No, sir. Our last class happened on Saturday. So Sunday, Monday was election, no class. So Tuesday and Wednesday class was not there. My grandmother expired, so I was not able to attend the last 2 days classes. After Saturday, today is the class. Yeah, some people are getting confused. Last class happened on Saturday. So Sunday and Monday we declared holiday due to election, and unfortunately we lost grandmother on Monday. So Tuesday and Wednesday I was not able to take the class. Yeah, even DevOps class also not happened after Saturday. Okay, good. Yeah, fine. For DevOps, today is the first session, sir. Today DevOps tools will be starting at 8 p.m. IST. So I have already shared the details in the group. So DevOps demos completed. Today, the first DevOps tool is going to start. If anybody interested, they can attend. I have given the link in the chat box. I have given the link in the chat box. If anyone is interested, then they can attend. Yes, DevOps full stack people. So the people who are belongs to DevOps full stack, they can attend the classes from today. Zoom link I have given in the chat box. All right. Fine. Good. Next one, guys. Coming to Linux architecture. Coming to Linux architecture. So when we are talking about Linux architecture, mainly we need to discuss about three things. One is shell, second one is kernel, and third one is hardware components. Okay. So when we are talking about Linux operating system, we know that Linux is multi-user based operating system. Multiple users can connect with the single Linux machine at a time, and they can perform multitasking. Okay, now, so here coming to the Linux architecture, in the Linux, mainly we need to talk about shell, then kernel, then hardware components. So when it comes to hardware components, okay, drivers will be available. Okay, printers will be available. Okay, disks will be available, etc. These are called as hardware components. Here, kernel is one of the most important component in the Linux operating system. Kernel is the core component in Linux OS. Kernel is the core component in the Linux OS. Kernel is responsible to communicate with the hardware components. Okay, when you want to perform some operation in the Linux machine, then we need to give the instruction to the hardware components in the Linux. We cannot communicate with the Linux hardware component directly. That's why kernel will come into picture. Kernel is the core component in the Linux operating system. Kernel is responsible to communicate with the hardware components. Kernel is the core component in the Linux operating system, and this kernel is responsible to communicate with hardware components. Okay, shell is the mediator between users and kernel. Okay, kernel is the core component in the Linux operating system, and this kernel is responsible to communicate with the hardware components. Kernel will act as mediator between shell and Linux hardware components. Kernel will act as mediator between shell and Linux hardware components. Then what is the shell? Shell is the mediator between users and the kernel. What is shell? Shell is a mediator between users and kernel. Our commands will be processed by shell only. So when you execute some command, for example, we are using ls-l, something like this. I connected to my Linux machine, then I'm executing ls-l. So when I execute some command, that command got processed and we are getting output from that command. That command got processed and we are getting some output from that command. Okay, who is processing this command? This command is processed by shell in the Linux operating system. Our command is processed by shell in the Linux machine. That shell will take our command, shell will verify our command is valid or not. If our command is valid, then shell will convert our command to kernel understandable format. Okay, so shell is like a container. Shell is like a container in the Linux machine. That shell is responsible to process our commands. So that shell is the interface between users and kernel. The default shell that we are getting in the Linux machine is called as a bash shell. So what is a shell? Shell is like a container. That shell is acting as interface between users and kernel. The default shell that we are getting in the Linux machine is bash shell. How do we get the default shell, guys? By using echo $0. It is going to display what is the default shell we have in the Linux machine. In the Linux machine, we are having the default shell as bash shell. How to check the default shell? By using echo $0. So we are getting the bash shell. So what that shell is doing here in the Linux operating system. So if you see the Linux operating system, you can see the diagram like this. So users can execute some applications in the Linux machine. When user executes some application or when user executes some command, then shell will be there. Shell is going to read that command. Shell will give the instruction to the kernel. Kernel will give the instruction to the hardware. Okay. So we can run some applications in the Linux. We can run some commands in the Linux. When we run any command in the Linux, it will be reading by shell. So if you execute a command called ls command, so whether this command syntax is correct or not, shell is going to verify that. Once your command is verified, then shell will convert your command into kernel understandable format. What is a kernel? What is kernel? Kernel is the core component in the Linux operating system. That a kernel will convert our operation into hardware understandable format. On the hardware, the operation will happen. What is shell in the Linux? Shell is like a container that is acting as interface between the users and kernel. The default shell in the Linux machine is bash shell. It is commonly used to run the commands. Okay, how to find the default shell in the Linux? By using echo $0, we can find the default shell in the Linux machine. Then what is the kernel in the Linux? Kernel is heart of the Linux operating system. The Linux kernel is the main component in the Linux operating system that will act as interface between computers, hardware, and its processors. Okay, what that kernel does? Kernel will perform memory management in the Linux operating system. Kernel will perform process management in the Linux operating system. It will take care of device drivers and it will do system calls and it will take care of the security in the Linux machine. So shell, kernel, and hardware. We will execute a command. Our command will be taken care by shell. Shell will validate our command syntax. If our command syntax is valid, shell will convert that into kernel understandable format. Kernel will convert that into hardware understandable format to perform the actual operation in the Linux machine. Okay, then Linux file system, guys. So as of now, we are doing some operations on the Linux machine. So if you can see, currently we are creating the files by using this touch command, f1.txt, touch f2.txt. Some files we are creating. But where those files are getting created? Where those files are created? So you can check pwd. Our present working directory is available. So what is our present working directory? /home/ec2 user. Inside the home directory, one ec2 user directory is created. Inside that directory, we are creating our files. But if you understand, in the Windows, the file system will be available like this. C drive will be available. Inside the C drive, users will be available. Program files will be available. Some folders will be available. If you want to do this, 500 GB hard disk is available, 500 GB SSD available here. We can do the disk partitioning, C drive, D drive, E drive, like that we can do some partitioning. But in the Linux machine, if you observe, the Linux file system will be available like this. Everything will start from root. Everything will start from the root. Inside the root, home directory, etc, user, opt, boot, bin, mount, temp, media, var, sbin, lib, root, user, like this some subdirectories will be available in this Linux file system. So we need to understand in the Linux, everything is starting from root. Okay. So if you see the Linux file system contains some directory structure like this. How to verify this? Currently we are in the home directory and ec2 user directory. Okay, cd space ... Now we came to home directory. cd space dot dot. Now we came to root directory. So currently I'm pointing to root directory in the Linux machine. How to check the content of the root directory? ls-l. So when you execute ls-l command, you can see all the content of the root directory. Root directory is the starting point in the Linux machine. Everything will start from root directory on. Everything will start from root directory in the Linux machine. So what is there inside this root directory? Bin directory, boot directory, device directory, etc, home, lib, media, mount, opt, temp, user. So like this, there are several other directories available inside the root. So by default, for every user, one home directory will be created inside the slash home. Inside the slash home, for every user, one home directory will be created. All of you, could you please read what is the purpose of each directory available inside the root directory? All of you, please read what are the subdirectories available inside the root directory. All of you, please read what are the subdirectories available inside the root directory. Bin, boot, device, etc, home, lib, media, mount, opt, temp, and user. Are you reading this, guys? Are you able to understand the Linux architecture? So first one, everything will start from root directory in the Linux operating system. Then inside the root, if you see ls-l, bin directory will be available. Boot directory, device directory, etc directory, home directory, lib directory, media, mount, opt, okay, user, where, then temp, this, like this, several directories available. What is the meaning of bin directory here? So bin directory contains some binaries essential to ready to run the programs. User bin directory. Okay, ready to run programs, binaries, any softwares that will be there, you can keep that in the bin directory and you can run them. Ready to run programs will be there. Boot directory, static files of the bootloader. Static files of the bootloader are nothing but any files that are used to start our Linux machine. When the Linux machine is getting started, what are the configuration files required to start the machine? Those things will be available in the boot. Static files for the bootloader to start the Linux system. Some files required. Those files will be available inside the boot directory. Next one, device files will be available in the dev directory. etc. Host specific system configuration. Any configuration files you can keep. Home directory /home, user home directories will be available in the /home directory. Then next one, lib directory, shared libraries, any libraries that you want to keep, that you can keep in the lib directory. Removable media files will be there, mounted file system, application software packages, optional application software packages, any software that you want to install, you can install that in the OPT directory. Temp, the temporary storage files will be available. User utilities and applications will be available in the user directory. This is the Linux file system structure. Okay, so any additional files that you want to keep, you can keep in the etc. Any softwares you want to install, you can use them in the OPT directory. Okay, so any files, user specific files that you want to create, for every user one, home directory will be available. In that home directory, you can perform those operations. User home directory will be available. In that home directory, you can create your files and you can perform your operations. All right. So this is Linux architecture. Linux architecture. Applications you can run, commands you can run. Shell will take those commands. Shell will give the commands to kernel understandable format. Kernel will convert that into hardware understandable format. Shell and kernel. So this is Linux file system hierarchy, and these are the main important files available in the root directory. Okay. Now I'm going to my home directory. So I logged in into this machine as a EC2 user. Okay. Now if you see my present working directory /home/EC2 user, I connected with this Linux machine as EC2 user. Good. Fine. From tomorrow, we are going to discuss about scripting guides. Okay. We are going to discuss about scripting. Shell scripting we are going to learn from the tomorrow session. So you need to practice all these things before coming to tomorrow session. I will be updating the notes also in the portal. So from tomorrow, we will work on scripting concept. Okay. Yeah. So from today, our DevOps tools are getting started at 8 p.m. IST. I think I have already shared the Zoom link in the chat box. Anybody want to attend for this? They can attend. I'm updating Linux notes in the website. Yeah, good. Thank you guys. So with this, I'm stopping for today and we will meet in the tomorrow session. Tomorrow we'll start with shell script. Yeah, good. Thank you.